Hello, everyone. Welcome to This Week in Talking Saints. I am Jeff Openshaw. I just want you to think about what that acronym is. I am Jeff Openshaw, your host and founder of This Week in Talking Saints. Are you there yet, Josie?
I'm. Look.
It says twits. It's
Yes,
twits.
I
That's the
know.
joke.
Yes.
You're supposed to laugh more.
No, look, my husband has a lot of dad jokes. And so there just is kind of like a point where I'm like, do I validate this or
Yes.
do I let it
Yes.
go?
Jeremy
Encourage
is
this behavior.
wise man. You listen to him. He might not be very tall, but he's very smart. Very smart fellow. Very smart fellow.
Bless him. We're
Much love to
definitely.
him.
Yeah.
Well, the official name of this show is still This Week in Mormons. Yeah, we've been
Come
talking
at
about
us.
that ever since conference. We've been talking about this, and we might be today a little bit as well. Anyway, I'm Jeff Openshaw, your founder and co-host this week, along with back from the brink. Yes, back from the brink. Josie Gleave is here. What's going on?
Look, that's a pretty apt description because I feel like I've only just survived this year and I'm about to go through the hardest part of it. So, but I'm here. I'm glad to be here and just counting down the days until I give birth. Any words of advice for me, Jeff?
Yeah, I know a lot about the way the female body endures and experiences things, and I'm definitely in a place to help give advice. I don't know.
But you would have been a good husband who supported your wife and
I
also
would have been, yes.
Listen to her complain about it. So what are these complaints?
Well, I mean, okay, complaints of birthing. Well,
besides the fact that
pregnancy can stink for many. I know that it's not always fun. Some women get a big kick out of pregnancy and some have a really hard time, and that's unique to the individual. So I think as a husband, you just be supportive and understand for one, you can't understand. I cannot empathize with what happens to women, and both physically and hormones, and then you got postpartum stuff. I can't deal. I don't know what any of that's like. So all I can do is sit there and just be supportive and do everything you can, like you should, to ease someone's burden. And just as we covenant as Latter-day Saints to ease one another's burdens in a broader context, I think as men, it's really a time to step up and embrace that ethos when your wife is expecting or in the wake of the birth and all that. So
look, I think you can give yourself a little bit of a break. I think that still counts as empathizing. You don't have to know exactly what this experience actually feels like. I think you have a pretty good imagination where you can, maybe get like a teaspoon of, I kind of think like this looks pretty miserable for you. I can be there for you.
You can tell. And sometimes it's even scary. Like you see what your wife goes through and like recovery sometimes. My wife had C-sections mostly. So recovery is a different beast, but you keep an eye on them. And, it's really hard because in that case, you spend weeks not really being able to move around a ton because you're recovering from that. And you're dealing with a newborn at the same time. So it's a lot. My hat goes off to women. I don't know how they do it. I can barely handle like the couple of hours of dinner to bedtime with my children, let alone all that other stuff. So women, I salute you always and forever. You're doing the good work. I am just here. But
cheers,
I have
Jeff.
the priesthood, so I'll be humble. That's what I've heard once in Elder School, and I don't agree with that at all. But that's a different topic. We don't need to get into all of that exciting stuff because there's no news relevant to that this week. But yeah, we're excited for you to start this new chapter in your life, Josie. We might not hear from you for a little bit, understandably so, if that's the case.
I mean, we kind of already haven't heard much from me this year because it's been a rough pregnancy, but that's
you've had other pursuits and things happening. I mean, you've been busy.
Yeah, some other work and sort of university stuff. So, gosh, it does feel like I've survived a year. Woof. But yeah, so we'll see how baby in the new year goes, and hopefully, I don't know. Hopefully, I survive that one too. Okay, I do feel like I'm like keenly aware that these are my last days of being childless. And I'm a bit like, what should I do with myself? Do I I don't know, get up and leave the house within 5 minutes just because I can? Like, I'm very concerned about running out of time and not having used it properly and then later on being like, oh, why is it so hard to get out of the house? Why can't I move around as easily because of this child? Like, just having that, I'm aware that the responsibility on me is going to change forever, and I maybe focus on that a little
You've
bit too
had a good
much.
run though. You've had a good run though.
Sure.
I mean, you got married pretty young. You've had a good while to enjoy
Yeah.
yourself. So it's time for you to suffer like the
Oh,
rest of
look,
us.
Jeff, you know what?
That is true.
We're okay. Why don't you just move on with the news, and I'm not going to
Okay. In
respond to
all
that comment
seriousness,
either.
in all seriousness, it's wonderful and you're gonna
Yeah.
have a great time. And it's gonna be hard and exhausting, but at the same time, it's just it's a little miracle and it's just a
Yeah.
one. I get all sappy and I mean, we hopped on tonight and you asked me how I was. I was like, it's been a night of terror with my children. And those things happen, but you still love them like crazy because
Yeah.
they're yours. That's all there is to it. They're yours.
Yeah.
And that's all
Nah,
you can do.
little baby girl, she's going to be hopefully cute. Look, you can tell me if she's not cute. I think that I'm going to be able to hopefully tell some of the difference. I can accept that I will think that she's adorable no matter what, but like if she has a cone head or something like that or a ginormous nose, I do
Hmm.
feel like you could tell it to my face.
Are these the
I'll,
things you worry about? Ginormous noses? Is that something that
well,
you're genetically
actually, no.
concerned about
As you
manifesting
mentioned, my
itself?
husband's height, I was initially worried about that. But good news is her femur is measuring longer than normal. So I'm like, yes, she's going to get my side of the genes. So hopefully.
Well, there we
So,
go.
some perks.
All right. Let's get into some Latter-day Saint news here, folks. And I'm going to start off this week with some really important news that all of you have been dying to hear about. It appears the fine people behind Endless Misery and Woe that made productions such as The Mormon Bachelorette, which longtime listeners know we've gone to great lengths to lampoon and criticize. And I appeared on, by the way, if you didn't know this, folks, on the original run of The Mormon Bachelorette in 2010, I was a contestant. This show was in its infancy then, but if you're interested in seeing that, I can post things. I can share things with you. We even interviewed them. It's like our 20th show or something like that. Anyway, later on, they did that for a bit. It went quiet. Then they kind of brought back the Mormon Matchmaker again, or maybe they call it the Latter Day Bachelorette. I don't know how it lined up with our Mormonism of things. Either way, I think the last time they did it was when they had a bunch of different dates. There wasn't like a single bachelorette or bachelor. It was a bunch of bachelorettes. They're doing it again, and they just you get to apply and join the fun of being matched up. I mean, if this picture at the beach is any indication, you can be a girl who's wearing garment inappropriate shorts and have a man kneel down and offer you a ring. I feel like that's very on brand. This seems delightful. Also, it's fair they are capitalizing the D in latter day, which is fine. Although, I mean, that's not exactly cohesive with the official church here, but the Latter Day Saint movement often has a capital D. So we'll let it slide. Maybe they're out there representing the Bickertonites or somebody else as well. Bully for them. And above all else, I love the application form. I love the questions they ask.
The application form is great, but real quick, you did just garment shame her shorts, and I'm more
I sure
offended
did.
really about this like weird crochet poncho thing she's wearing as a top. That's more
It's
concerning to
it's
me.
only mostly for me because I feel like an organization like the Self is trying to represent themselves in a certain way, and obviously, one's at the beach too, so all bets are off.
I don't know.
I'm only
This
saying it feels like
dude
it's off
who's
brand for
kneeling
what they're trying to
down,
do.
his left pant leg is bunched up a little bit. I'm not seeing any little strip of white underneath there either.
Oh,
So
you could wear the short cuff ones and you'd be
whatever.
okay. I don't
Um,
actually care what these people are wearing. I just think it's an interesting stock photo for them to decide to use
it
for
is.
for their purposes. That's all.
As you said, the application as well is mildly offensive in some areas. Like they've listed,
Mildly.
you have to click your own body type, and this is for women. This is the women's application, so you can select yourself as either being athletic, average, petite, curvy, fit, slender, a few extra pounds, or large. And where did these body types come from? I wonder. Also, what is maybe you're just supposed to self-select because
The
what
question
is
is what
average?
is
What is
average? Yeah.
fit? What is
What is
fit
average?
versus athletic?
Okay. Well, you
Or
want to
are we
know
talking
fit?
British fit, which
No.
is quite different?
Ah, no. In my mind, fit means in normal good shape, but not muscular per se. Athletic means like softball players. If I can be so crass, that's what athletic implies in my mind.
Maybe.
But I agree with you.
Okay.
I think it's a blurry line though. I think maybe athletic implies you're heavy. You have a heavy sport player build, whereas fit could be someone who just like goes to the gym
What
to
does hot
just be
yoga?
toned up. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I don't know.
I, the,
Slender could
slim,
imply you are thin, but with no definition,
yeah, like what?
right?
Naturally skinny. Yeah, I don't know. There's a whole host of that where I'm like, oh, that's gonna spiral down into body image issues. Let's move on from that one.
I like the one that says, "What are your hobbies or interests?" with no question mark. People really took the time to copy edit this crap. Um, nice job there. How would you describe your activity level in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints? That one's fine. Very active, reasonably active, very active, reasonably active, semi-active, or not active. That is our spectrum, people. That is our spectrum of activity.
Did
You
you
are either
serve a mission? Unknown. Why is that an option? I'm
I
pretty
don't know
sure
if
that's a yes or a no question.
I just noticed that one. I like
I just don't
I'm not
understand.
sure. I mean, I woke up one day and I was in Iowa. I don't know what I did there. And
Don't
then
know how I got here.
what mission did you serve in? Like that's fine. And then of course the one I love at the end, have you been convicted for crime? Not convicted of a crime. Like when you were convicted in court, did they say, "We find you guilty of crime. You have been convicted for crime," everyone.
But also that drop down, that one's clearly a yes or no question, and they've managed that. I don't understand. Oh, yeah.
I want to fill this out just to see what happens.
And you need, oh, let's see, details of your criminal convictions and any other comments or considerations you'd like to add, which I assume is where you put your, um, uh, I don't know. Do you have like a one liner or something? Are you supposed to pitch yourself at the end of why you'd be a great candidate?
Now remember,
The
this is the TV
oof.
show they do because this is a full blown dating service. This is a thing. This is just one part of what they do. If you click on their website on how it works, for example, you see their actual. These are professional matchmakers. No different than when you get on the plane and you find those. It's just lunch ads when they
Ah,
used to have in-flight magazines, right? You can spend literally. Look at this investment amount: $6,000 monthly.
no. What?
Monthly. This says VIP matchmaking for men. There's a little sexism there as well. They assume men are the ones who have the money who can throw around $72,000 a year to be part of their VIP matchmaking service, which means you get the full surfeit of options here. Personalized screening and date setups, which is a bit troubling for me. So if you spend the lower tier of $3,250 a month, $3,250 per month, you don't get personalized screening and dates. You only get you get a year of access to the Lasting Love Academy, coaching sessions, professional photography, personal styling and image review and makeover, feedback dates. Well, is a feedback date like when you do like an informational interview for a job? I don't know.
I
The
wonder if it's
wing
you go
on
on a
this
date and then you need to like debrief afterwards.
that's my assumption, yeah. But you don't get any of the higher end stuff where they actually like personally screen people for you. Now,
Oh
you can be a
man.
free member, but you only get access to their exclusive black book, priority invitations to events, and the ready assessment at the relateinstitute.com, which I need to see what kind of snake water the relate oil rather. I like snake water works for me too. The Relate Institute doesn't appear at this point to have a webpage that will open. We're still working on the servers here. It's taking its sweet time. I don't know what they do with the Relate Institute, but well,
Hold on. Why is the women's styling package $900 more than the men's styling package?
because reasons,
Because
right?
we get a makeup lesson?
Because
I think that's the
the
only thing
money.
that's different.
The men
No?
have the money for the VIP treatment.
And men get an eyeglasses consultation. What? The state of our eyes don't matter? Hmm.
I want to know
Interesting.
what all their I mean, if you look at their about the team, what people do, like they say they've got the Lasting Love Academy. It was created by Elisa Snell, the nation's leading expert in helping thousands of singles find lasting love.
You know what?
I
I
just want to
don't
know
doubt that. She can.
what are her credentials? What
Mm,
makes her the nation's leading expert? If she was that big, she'd probably at least be on Dr. Oz or something
stats,
along the.
that's all. How many people has she successfully set up and they've gotten married? We
I'm looking
only
for
need the
Elise.
numbers.
Okay, now her LinkedIn profile says nation's number one dating and relationship strategist at Lasting Love Academy, but she
You know
only has
what? I
200.
feel like it's one of those things when you walk by a hamburger shop and they're like best burger in the nation, and I'm like, cool. Who gave you that title?
Well, I'm first of all, I'm thoroughly enjoying her LinkedIn page because I love this CV she's got here. Starting from 2003 to 2005, she was the president of Utah's dating coach. Then from 1996 until the present, she's been the owner of Lasting Love Academy. And then she's also worked at the Lasting Love Academy in three different positions, which are from 2005 to present, a dating and relationship strategist, a strategist,
Mm.
and then the president from 2005 to now, and then also the nation's number one dating and relationship strategist for Lasting Love Academy. Those have all but three concurrent jobs. She's triple hatted. I don't know how you couldn't trust this person. This is excellent. This is,
You know, I think this will be really. I actually didn't realize that it was like a matchmaking service
oh,
that
yes, this
has
is
like
all about,
teamed up with, a
it's,
production crew to make a
yeah.
TV show. So, you
Well, you
know,
see old Aaron Schertz there, who was one of the original Mormon Bachelorette people. They're all part of this thing. It's
oh, you're
all
just
one
name
big.
dropping now. I can't say I really followed it
I'm
through.
just looking at the web. I'm just looking at the website.
Okay.
That's all I'm
All
doing. That's all I'm
righty.
doing. I'm not doing anything wild. Anyway, good for them. So, folks, if you want, we'll link to this on this weekend laddermormons.com and with the show notes. You can go click that out if you are single.
And please just go with
I actually
average body type. I'd like to see how that works out for you.
I would actually love to see if all of our listeners, especially the single ones, could bombard it. And I would love to see if you get into any kind of a process. I would love to.
Yeah.
I know that I'm sure NDAs will get involved at some point. I understand that, but in as much as you can be above board, I would love to hear more about that. That'd be
But
fascinating.
you're asking someone to go undercover for us.
That's essentially it. Yes.
I like this idea. Go for
Thank
it.
you, Josie.
Um, okay. So on to not or moving on from trashing the Bachelorette, etc., and other reality TV. The This story I actually find quite interesting and intriguing and very weird, which is that the BYU Cougarettes Instagram is being held for ransom, and it has been since September 30th, which I feel like this is a decent amount of time that the Instagram account has actually not been returned to, well, I guess to BYU. So it has a new handle that I don't know what that's really supposed to say, but it's
Farah Ben Far Away.
79K. He's not asking for 79K. He's asking for $1,000 for the account to be returned. And from what I can gather, other users and BYU have like reported to Instagram that this is what's going on. But it doesn't seem to have actually changed anything yet, which I'm thinking is a pretty slow response time.
Now
Um,
let's look at a few things here. So it does say the
yeah.
Instagram account is held to be sold back to its owner.
Uh-huh.
There's a hyperlink there that goes to WhatsApp. It's +9. I'm assuming it's +90, and that's
Yeah,
the
the
country code for
phone.
that's the country code for Turkey.
Oh, is it? It's such a random scam. Like, how did you? I'm fascinated with the whole idea of like how are these scammers picking someone or a particular account?
How do they choose
Like,
their targets? Yeah.
yes, I'm like, what made you go BYU Cougarettes of all things, or of all? Like, I would have thought normally you'd go for individuals, but an
Can I
entire school. It's very strange.
it's a random one to go after, and
Ah,
clearly they don't care enough to pay the ransom or to do much of anything. I mean, it's still going on after a few weeks, which is
yeah.
longer than. Also, I mean, bad choice on whoever wanted to extort them because
Because they haven't
They
paid.
haven't been paid. Now they're just stuck managing this random account.
Yeah, I would
Oh,
love to know what the Cougarettes actually think is going on. Like, I probably would maybe be a little bit creeped out because, like, they're, someone is essentially holding images now of these young women as well, and that's probably not got that probably doesn't feel good, or maybe feels a little bit creepy, even though, like, yes, you're on Instagram, yes, you're being like marketed as a part of the BYU Cougarettes team and things like that. And none of it is, they're not like inappropriate photos by any means,
yeah.
but it's still just, it does have a weird kind of creepy, icky feeling of like, oh, this guy now currently, well, or this person, whoever they are, far away Ben, whatever, um, yeah, has control of their account. It does give
79K.
you, yeah.
More importantly, I think a bigger discussion we should be having. I think Cougarettes is way too close of a word to courgette, the British word for a zucchini. And it kind of frustrates me every time I read it. I'm
That's
like,
what's keeping
no,
you up at night. The
it's
BYU courgettes.
and it gets worse every fall when the Great British Baking Show is on, because then it's just
No.
elevating the amount of British vocabulary that enters my lexicon. Uh, yeah. So anyway, that's good times. Good times. Good times. All right. Real quick mention: you can get your all new chart, hot off the press, of general authorities and general officers of the church. It's finally released after conference. There weren't a lot of like new 70s called, a couple of releases, so no big changes in the ranks. But you can download this PDF and you can have it just like it's been of old. I mean, they haven't changed the format a ton over the years as far as how this looks. However, I don't know, and I don't know if this is the first time, so I'm not going to say it is. So listeners, don't jump on me, but feel free to correct the record or offer insights. I think it's worth noting and nice to see that the Relief Society is elevated nice and highly next to the General Authority 70s as the top of the general officers. So they're in the right sidebar. You got Relief Society, Sunday School, young women, young men, and then primary. It's nice to see some visibility for the female organizations. There's only 9 of them, amongst this sea of testosterone. And just glad to see that. And that might have been the case even 6 months ago or even before that. And I just wasn't tracking it. So if so, I apologize. I don't mean to be ignorant about that. But I think that's great to see. Yeehaw.
Yeehaw.
Now, the other thing we were noticing, though, Josie,
Yes.
before when we were talking, you were wondering how new or not the photos are, particularly of the brethren, the
Look,
top 15.
there's no question that they're not all brand new photos. That seems pretty evident. Um there is some, shall we say, just like tighter skin and smiles than maybe you see
Tighter,
in
tighter skin and smile.
conference.
So you think work has you are alleging that work has been done? If I
No,
can
I'm
use
just
if I can
saying
use
that
passive voice,
maybe some of these photos are a little bit older. And hey, I have no problem with that. I'm not saying anything's wrong with that, except that the lighting is uh not consistent. That would be my only complaint. Like, guys, all we gotta maybe do is use the same filter if we're going with a filter.
I'll agree with that. The
Keep it
style,
consistent.
if you look at the 12, the style of the photos from the backgrounds, the lighting, the tone,
They're all
very
over the place.
it does demonstrate a real lack of professionalism.
Yeah, they're a little like 90s school picture day kind of backgrounds. They're sort of that color.
If you want to talk picture day, you should see the ones that came back from my middle child from preschool this week.
Please send them.
I'll let you see them. It's something special. I don't know what happened. YouTubers listening on YouTube. My middle son has like a very natural smile, very good, very happy smiley face, but his photos are like this.
Oh no.
Just looks like terrified, and it's we practiced with him too. Anyway, that
You
happened.
practiced with it? Well, maybe that's
We
part of the problem. He got a little camera shy. He's
well no,
like,
because
"Oh,
we
I'm
said what do you
supposed to smile naturally. This is my natural look. Deer in the headlights."
the best thing is the weird things the props they use. He's sitting next to like a bushel of fake apples, and it has some dumb sign that says something about a bushel in the hand or something like that. There's a picture with him just kind of holding one of the apples, and he's like,
Do
he
we
just looks
still do
really,
props? I thought we'd
he
moved
looks
on
very
from that.
confused. My favorite takeaway when he came home, he said, I was looking at the pictures, and he's like, yeah, but Dad, those apples aren't real apples. Those are not real apples.
It's like, I've been scammed. It wasn't even a snack. It
I
was
would agree.
just the photo.
Anyway,
Poor guy.
so per your inquiry here on the age of some of these photos, I feel some of these I've seen for years. I think like President Ballard, Elder Holland, Uchtdorf, Cook, Rasband, Stevenson for sure have been riding on those ones for a while. I mean, ones like Stevenson hasn't even been around for so long, but Elder
And
Holland, that's been Elder Holland's photo for a while, and
definitely. And
that's
they're
been Uchtdorf's photo
beautiful
for a very
photos.
long
So I'm
time.
okay that they haven't, like, they don't necessarily need to be updated. It's just a little bit goofy that some of them have and some of them have not.
Elder Christofferson's looks newer. You can tell Elder Renlund's is newer because the lighting is
Yes.
different, and because he's slimmed up quite a bit, and you
Yeah.
can tell that's the case there. What I'm also curious about: how do they decide, which shoulder they lead with? Who makes those decisions? Some of them are clearly left shoulder kind of forward. It's taken from that side profile, but then you switch over to Christofferson. He's in the other boat. Who?
They've
These are the
hired
important.
the LDS matchmaker to do an image consultation, and they've
They're
worked out which profile is their best side,
they're
would
all they're
be
all spending
the
$6,000.
only
The
explanation.
12 is spending $72,000 a month on these consulting services,
Well, some of them can afford it. Hey, oh, just kidding.
like Elder Stevenson. Heyo.
Moving on.
Like last week's. Did you see that news last? The
Yeah,
sisters
of
talked
course
about
I
it, but
saw.
so I don't want to.
Yes. Yeah.
I think that was
There's
mostly just that was interesting to me. It was mostly just it's such an interesting thing. I don't know.
Yeah, I
I
agree. There's been like a few little updates that have mostly just been like, why are members of the church surprised about this? Like, there does need to be a level of you're self sustainable, I guess, to be
I guess
called into. But yes, then the argument is always then that's quite a
if
bit.
I can
I don't know.
if I
So,
can since the sisters were on last week and I didn't get to talk about this, even though they did a
okay,
great job
let
with
me
it.
hear your spiel.
Only a little bit here because I don't fault anyone if you own have a portfolio and it's going to benefit from an IPO or whatever else. That's fine. I do think it would be like no issue whatsoever if this was just stock he had no involvement with iFit whatsoever, and if they have an IPO and he benefits from it, okay, so be it. Whoop-de-doo. And I don't think there's a conflict of interest. Some people said that because I don't think they understand what conflict of interest is. I don't think that there's like overlap between iFit's goals and the church's goals, and how Elder Stevenson would somehow be
Correct.
compromised in his job as an apostle doing that work because he'd have some kind of conflict of interest, unless they're like trying to buy nothing but Pelotons in the gym. And he's like, whoa, whoa, whoa! I know a guy. We can't do that. Like, what else is going to be the conflict of interest? Uh, but I do think it's a curious thing that they gave him an exception to it because I don't know. I'm curious to see how it benefits the church. There's been many who have said financially, of course, there'd be a tithing windfall from whatever he gets from an IPO. Fine. But beyond that, like when President Benson or Elder Benson was called to be the Secretary of Agriculture in the Eisenhower administration while a member of the 12, and they let him do it. I think that made sense. It's like, oh, this shows the church is involved. We are respected. We have a member of our church leadership in a presidential cabinet. It was good for the church's public image. I don't know. We're helping iFit in a way because we're letting them have a founder be on their board of directors, which doesn't involve much for an IPO. I get it. Like it looks good to have a founder on your board when and that's going to be like once a quarter he goes to a meeting or something, and that's it. Like that's all
Mm.
it's going to be. So I get why it benefits them. I just don't see the flip side of it of like what the value is from I don't see what the church gets out of that at all. What's our boon in allowing Elder Stevenson to serve on the board in that capacity? And if anything, I feel like it does make it look a little bit like what happened to all that, like, leaving your nets kind of thing. Like, why is this still an issue? I think it just opens it up to weird criticism that isn't even necessarily founded, but it kind of just unnecessarily does that. Obviously, I'm not in the room. I don't think much of it personally. Like, really, he's just going to go vote on a board every a couple times a year to do some stuff. Whoop-de-doo. I don't think it's going to really compromise his duties as an apostle or anything like that. But I just think it's kind of interesting optics above all else. So that's all.
Mm. Yeah, definitely. I'm gonna
End
move on.
rant.
Yeah, no,
Fine.
that's
Move
all
on.
good. No, I was just gonna move on real quick.
That's all. We're just gonna move on real quick. Okay, we're just gonna move on. I'm just gonna move on.
I could give you my 10 cents on that, but I do feel like we had covered that topic last week, so I don't want
Sure.
to dive into it too much. But I do want to dive into bad Mormon food art, which is coming to an exhibit near you.
Latter Day
If
Saint food art.
you,
Latter Day Saint food art.
sorry, you wrote the headline. Um,
It's because it's internally. It's a lot quicker to write that.
okay,
I only have
so
so many keystrokes. Come on.
there is an exhibit coming to the Utah Museum of Contemporary Art. And this is by, let's see, what's his name? Daniel George, who teaches at Utah Valley University. My understanding is he is either a photographer or maybe it was, hold on, let me get his title just right. But essentially, what he's done is looked at some Mormon, not Mormon, sorry, Utah. Wow. Utah like Relief Society kind of cookbooks or ward cookbooks and taken some of those recipes and baked them or cooked them or assembled, whatever you want to call it, and then photographed them also with some backgrounds that might like seem a bit nostalgic or representative to members of the church, which really, I'll be honest, I think the only one I really recognized as far as a background goes was his picture of the, are these BYU brownies? I don't know why they're BYU brownies. I think they look like brownies with some, I don't know, a minty layer. Anyways, but it's got that
Oh, well,
like,
people make it's a very BYU thing. You make brownies and
oh,
you put those Andes mint chocolates over the top
oh, is
before it
that
goes
what
in
they
the
are?
oven. Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
it's
yeah,
got a
yeah.
little white layer. There we
Yeah.
go. All
It's
right.
a pale green. It's a pale green layer.
Is it? Okay. Well, apparently they're delicious. So, you know, we've got
No,
a
because
lot.
brownies should not be frosted, folks. I will die on this hill.
It's true. I
Brownies
do
should
kind of
never be
feel like
frosted,
the
ever.
brownie itself was probably enough. I don't know why they need the mints on top, but, you know,
Because we
maybe
are Latter Day Saints and we
more is
overcompensate for
more.
our lack of alcohol consumption by just piling it on. We will eat a cookie and drink a soda at the same time. This is who we are as a people.
Yeah, I've
This
never
is what we've
understood
decided
that
to do.
combo.
Well, see, it's
And
sugar and maybe caffeine with the
what
sugar.
happened with milk? But we're just not into the idea of maybe, okay, cookies and milk? No,
I
no
like
one?
that milk is our alternative. That's what about milk?
I just feel like that's a very classic thing to do, though. Like cookies and milk, those go together, not cookies and soda. Anyways, the
I don't think
background
they're
of
not
this,
dipping the cookie in the
what,
soda.
you
They're
know
not.
what?
Maybe they
Fine.
are. I
But
don't know.
like,
That'd be
you
awesome.
don't need to wash it down with a Dr. Pepper, whatever. Okay. But the
But a
background
dirty
of
Dr.
this
Pepper.
has that, like, what is that textury wall thing called that we have in like some of those old, some of our older church buildings?
Yeah, we love. I call it burlap, even though it's not really burlap. Yeah,
Yeah.
the carpet walls, whatever they.
Is it carpet? But
I don't know if
even
it's really
better,
carpet.
it's got like a couple of like push pins in the background, which I'm like, oh, it was actually, this is the one background that did get me because I thought, oh, that is actually so accurate. Anyways, so this will be an exhibit coming soon. Obviously, there is Jello. Obviously, there is potato. What's it called? Not potato salad. Funeral potatoes. Sorry, guys. I do not know Utah food very well. Thank heaven. But there was also some mention of um, uh, Daniel George being quite surprised by some of the things that people were putting into Jello. Which, I mean, amen. I hear you, but I had never heard of shrimp, bell peppers, or onions being in the mayo.
This is
And
why we can't have nice things.
yeah,
This
maybe
is
I'm curious if anyone ever has actually put shrimp in. Please write to Jeff or someone at Twim. I would love to hear. Does that combo work?
twits, Josie. We're
Is that
twits now.
better than cookies and soda? I
I
would like
don't.
to know.
I don't.
Anyways, this is your
This
art.
is why
Go and
Utah.
engage.
This is why Utah lost the outdoor show at the
Oh,
convention center. It's things like this,
oh.
people. You've got to. This is just okay. Whatever. Fine. I'll just. All right. So Jana Reese. It would not be this week in this show. This week in that's also twits. This week in this. Oh, I think I might have found it finally. This week in this show. It's perfect. So, um, so Jana Reese has an interesting article I liked about the quote, the battle lines around the word Mormon. We've danced around this a little bit already this week, right? And of course, it's been in the news for the past couple of weeks since General Conference. Um, I don't know. Her initial stuff is kind of funny, where she talks about her favorite podcast of a guy who just explains the history of the English language and then pivots into saying, "I've listened for 100 hours. I've never heard this on the podcast."
Man, it
Leaders of
was
a tiny,
not a pivot. It was like a
not
180-degree turn. I was like, Chada, this is not an intro.
very unnecessary segue. Literally, you could just lead off with the was it the fourth paragraph? Just it's been just over 3 years since
Yeah.
Russell M. Nelson, president of the church, began on purging Mormon. I don't know what's going on with the intro, Jana. It's bizarre. But anyway, obviously, Elder Anderson spoke about this. She speaks a little bit, though, about why outsiders continue to use the word Mormon, even as we try to purge it and expunge it in every way possible. And she's got some reasons. She says mostly it's single. It's a single, short, convenient word that functions equally well as either a noun, like I'm a Mormon, or as an adjective, like she says, delicious Mormon funeral potatoes or Mormon, food art, like we just talked about. So that's why you see it in headlines from major news outlets. She has some screen caps of recent news that use the word Mormon or Mormons or the Mormon Church, which we know that one is not correct and unfair. Um, that's still happening. That's the thing. Now, Elder Anderson alleged that journalists, of course, that do this are being disrespectful or irresponsible. He kind of said that. He said, they want fair-minded media to honor the desire of our desire to be called by our name of nearly 200 years. I mean, there's some fairness to that because every organization has a style guide for the press, and whether the press chooses to follow it is the press's business. And every organization is completely within its rights to encourage the press to adopt the terms by which that organization wishes to be known. It's honestly very little different than what we've seen the past couple of years of all like the she, her, all that kind of stuff. Like, how do you want to be addressed, and do we respect someone, or in this case, an organization saying this is how I wish to be referred to and addressed? Please respect that. That's what a style guide is. And it is kind of funny because we don't think much of that for people.
Hmm.
If I don't call you Jocelyn. You like to be called Josie, right? And that's fine. That's how you like to represent yourself. So it's not wrong for the church to want to do that by any stretch of the imagination. Um, but then she talks about where things have gone in the past few years. And we see spikes in Google traffic searches, which aren't a perfect metric, but they're interesting. And you see spikes when there's kind of negative news, like the shootings in Mexico or the leak about how much the church's fund was, or murder among the Mormons coming out. But overall, searches for Mormon are going down, unless you think this is because we're doing our job and Latter-day Saints or members of the Restored Church or something has gone up. Basically, all search terms related to the church have declined in the past little while. And that alone is an interesting thing, I think, that should make one take pause. She does note the caveat that Utah is doing fine. Utah is searching very well as far as the Restored Church of Jesus Christ, and they're doing a good job there. But it should tell us that like Utahns are on board with the change, but the rest of the world is not. And if anything, we're apparently we're losing the SEO battle a little bit, which I think is kind of fascinating. So that's that part of it. And I like that in the end, she talks a little bit about Shibboleth. And long story short of Shibboleth was that there were members of, the house of Israel, right? You had the Gileadites were fighting the Ephraimites in battle. And the Ephraimites were trying to cross the River Jordan to safety. But the Gileadites were not, that wasn't enough for them just to let them go. They wanted to hunt every single Ephraimite down and kill them. So they made a checkpoint, and the password of the checkpoint was the word Shibboleth. Because of regional differences, Ephraimites could not pronounce the word correctly the same way others would. So they could easily find out who was an Ephraimite and kill them. And her main point is this wasn't like different groups. This wasn't, this wasn't like Babylonians against the Jews. This was Jews against Jews. And we're probably seeing some of that in our own ranks today with individuals, wondering like, are you demormoning well enough? Are you following the prophet? And I could see how this could become a wedge issue. I mean, anything could become a wedge issue, of course. Our desire to follow the council of leaders, anything could be a wedge issue if we decide we don't care about it and the mainstream does. But I thought that was worth thinking about, and it concerns me because I have seen that running this podcast.
Hmm.
3 years ago, we started to get lots of messages, not just asking us like, "Hey, are you guys going to change your name?" There's some of those, but there were tons of just say like, "Why aren't you following the prophet? Why aren't you listening to the church leaders?" Just very direct. No one asking how we feel. No one trying to understand anything, but just simply saying, assuming we are heretics, and that's picked up again in the past few weeks, which is interesting for me to observe primarily. My quick response is, while I think saying Mormons can have a bigger meaning, right? Like our church, the Brighamite church, concurrently wants to own all the term related to Mormon. And we have copyrights on the Book of Mormon, on this terminology. We want to be able to litigate that. But we also want to own it so much that we can say no one else. You can say no one else can use the word Mormon. We are the Mormons, but also we're not the Mormons. Don't you dare call us that. Um, but but Mormonism can be bigger than that, right? Like we could be talking about the community of Christ or the Bickertonites or the people who follow James Strang or whatever else it might be. Like there's even though most of what we do on this show is overwhelmingly about the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, absolutely it is. But some have said like, well, if we kept the name as it is, that could make sense because it's talking about the bigger tent of the entire Latter-day Saint movement, like pre the succession crisis, right? Much bigger issue. And that in that sense, Mormons or Mormonism in an academic context is potentially applicable. I think that's fair reasoning, but I don't think lay members of our church appreciate that nuance at all. And I don't think you can reach them in that same way. I'm sorry, I'm on the soapbox here a little bit, Josie.
No,
But
it's interesting because these are
well, that
questions that I had wanted to ask you about, which is the whole, every time maybe a conference talk or this reminder pops up, do you see a spike in your inbox telling
yes,
you that you are not doing the right thing? Which I
yes,
think kind of
absolutely.
proves a bit of Jana's point, which I hadn't thought about it this way, that maybe um this is just another issue to kind of like signal your obedience, and it could be more of a
It's
wedge
virtue
driver.
signaling
Yeah,
again. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
And it is, I also appreciate her point, and it's similar to your point about like this is a bit tougher in the media space. Like
It
you
is.
are going to drop as far as being easily recognizable, found, all of your SEO, things like that. Like it is a big change to ask, but also like from my perspective, I do feel like a lot of larger publications are actually making an effort as
I
far
think
as
it's
this
changed a little
goes.
bit. Yeah, I
Yeah,
agree.
like
I agree.
maybe they still say Mormon in the headline, but that's literally because the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is never going to fit in anyone's headline. Like whether you're in print, definitely not, or just digital, it's no, it's just never, it's actually just not going to fit. Most organizations that have a title that long accept the acronym. And that's okay that we're not, but I do think that
It's
expecting
yeah.
the publication to say it every single time could, I don't know. As she says, changing language could be, or maybe we need to think of this more as a process instead of an event, which was the
Which
same
I
sort of comparison to what
mhm.
was said in conference about the restoration being a process and an event. So that's where I think she got that line from. But I'm look, maybe because we're both also in media, we can see we agree with this perspective, whereas others may think like, no, you just jump on board. But I do think the name is, it's long and it's tricky and it's
and
kind of
and
clunky.
that's hard. I mean,
Mm,
I don't I do think I agree with you. I think I've still seen change. I don't even know if Jana's giving it all. I don't think Jana's giving it completely a fair shake because I've seen more recent even headlines that are trying to appreciate what the church is doing and try to
yeah,
respect
or
it. So I
or
have
the
seen change there, and it does take time. I don't expect this to
yeah,
be immediate. Like as long if it's mostly like if there's Elder Anderson's reminding us of this because if we are consistent as a people in doing this and in presenting ourselves accordingly, it's not going to be a flip of the switch. It could take a generation, honestly. But if we're consistent in doing that, slowly that other terminology gets put to bed. It doesn't solve the headline problems related to. I mean, a typical headline should be like 6 or 7 words
mm.
tops, and you're the Church of Jesus Christ of. I mean, you're like 8 or 9 words just from the church name, let alone the verbs and the other things that have to be part of the headline. So it's a lot easier to say Mormon Church, LDS Church. It's not correct, but that's how it works in the world of headlines. You don't have unlimited space to get your point across to a reader. I think the flip side of it, of course, is within Latter day Saint media, it just refers to the church, with everyone having the understanding of this could be the only possible church we're talking about, right?
Yeah,
If it's the
correct. That's
church,
a good
it's our
point.
church. Every other church will be called the Catholic Church, the Presbyterian Church, so whatever else. But if it's the church, it's us, and we take that as a given.
Perfect. Yeah, I don't mind having the reminders because think that the principle of, we're focusing on or trying to remind ourselves to focus on Jesus Christ, I'm like, that worthy goal. I'm okay with that. But the taking it to the point of making this as another wedge or another like us versus them, or you did it wrong, I'm more righteous than you, like none of that has any place in
Well,
what we're
and it
actually talking
shouldn't
about.
and it shouldn't be that way. And this is not to say it's even a incorrect effort, right? It's like there's many instances where doing the thing you should do is difficult and doesn't make sense on paper. Like all my arguments
Sure.
about good copy and journalism and all that are, for lack of a better term, worldly arguments about writing. And those don't take anything into account into what the proper way is something should be. It kind of, this is less related, but I remember when they were building the Newport Beach Temple, and which was originally grayer, that light gray color. Because if you've seen the Newport Beach Temple, it's like a salmon color. It looks kind of like California mission style, so it works.
Mm.
But the original design was a lot more like probably the Sacramento Temple, pseudo modern, taller, a bit grayer, all that. And then there were lots of concerns from neighbors and all the typical stuff, and they pared it down. But the first response the church made, I kid you not, in a meeting with civic leaders was, "This is the way the Lord wants this temple to be." And like, that's true, but that's not an argument you can necessarily make to a civic body to get your way. And of course, eventually we still made some compromises. And I see a few parallels here with this same issue. And a very different thing. But that's always stuck out to me when I remember hearing about that. It's like, guys, we can't explain this about the temple, and they're going to say, "Oh, this is what the Lord." Oh,
You're arguing
I'm
with
sorry. They would
the
say,
Lord
"I'm sorry,
here.
we didn't know. I'm sorry. Please proceed as you want." Like, it just doesn't. You gotta know your audience too. So anyway,
Well, I'm going to jump over to some international news really quick. We have a
oh,
few.
okay,
So good. Okay, so a new position has been added to the church organization in Europe that will expand the leadership roles for women in the region. 6 women have been called to a particular region of Europe as advisors to area organizations.
hmm,
They will participate in leadership councils and advise congregational leaders in their roles. And the Preston, England Temple Moroni has been replaced after it was
I
struck
saw
by
that.
lightning, which damaged its gold leaf little outer layer.
It's funny
And
they didn't just get rid of it altogether, given the current climate with that.
maybe they weren't too sure what else to put on the top.
Well, nothing. That's how it is now. You just have a little spire with nothing.
Oh, just a spire with nothing? I thought they were kind of maybe scrapping the spire and Moroni.
I see, like the Chorley Temple.
Actually, that's true. There are still
You
we
could
still have the
you could
spires.
you could easily see that if they did not have the Moroni, it would be fine.
Maybe
But
the people in Preston are very attached to having that Moroni there. So we got a new one, and he's all gold and shiny again.
there we go.
And for some service news, there's some youth in Queensland, Australia, who assembled 1,000 portable solar lights to send to children in Vanuatu who are impacted by energy poverty. So these
That's
lights were
awesome.
purchased by Latter day Saint Charities from an Australian organization, and they assembled those and have shipped them over. And then the church in Micronesia is also helping out by donating some sewing machines to a local organization that will teach young women life skills and economic pathways through through that skill. And then last one is that the MTC in Mexico City is finally being able to resume face-to-face training, which I think is
Face to
we need
face. Oh.
yeah, we need as much positive, like post COVID life kind of news possible. So that's great. I think that they had a couple of local missionaries who were able to fly in to Mexico City, and then quite a few internationals who were able to join. So
Says
that's good
51
news.
51 missionaries is what they're starting with right
Yeah.
now.
Look, I'm sure trying to learn a new language for those international
Mhm.
missionaries as well, it's got to be a much better experience in person than trying to do that over the
Yeah,
computer.
and
So,
curiously here, it's 6 Latino missionaries and 45 North American missionaries
hmm,
who were received at the MTC there in Mexico City. Sorry, I'm just reading this in
No, you're
Spanish
good.
because it's fun.
We
Anyway,
got
that's great.
some
Good for them.
we got
Bully
some
for
good
them.
stuff. So
That's
that's
good for
our
them.
main international news. We also have, I'm going to jump through these really quick. We have a lot of Mesa, Arizona Temple news because
Oh
the
yeah,
open
there's a ton of
house
that.
has just started, I think. I should know because
Are you gonna fly back
this
for
is my
it?
home temple. Oh no, because there are so many hoops to try and jump through to try and get back to try and get into Singapore at the moment. My parents are currently going through that, trying to see if they can actually come over for their grandchild. And
Oh
it
wow.
is not an easy process. Let's just say that. But as far as the temple goes, so we had some high profile people who came out to visit the Mesa Temple.
Oh
Um,
jeez. Oh
shall
jeez.
we raise an eyebrow to that? No. So we have the governor, Governor Ducey, who came and visited and I think toured with Elder
Founder of
Rasband.
Cold Stone Creamery, everybody.
Is he?
You're welcome. Oh, that
No. Is he
is
really?
way. Yeah, he was riding a serious wave there in the late '90s, early 2000s, and then
My
I'm assuming what
gosh. I
you
worked
want to
at
talk
Cold
about.
Stone for like 3 years. That was me as a teenager funding all of my college pretty much was Cold Stone Creamery. Also ate quite a significant amount of it at the same time,
Yeah,
not going to lie.
that is my understanding. I believe that is what he did.
Wow,
He
I
was an
did
American
not
business.
know
He
that.
was the CEO of Cold Stone Creamery because they're based in Scottsdale. That's that
Yes.
brilliant idea of here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take your ice cream and then I'm going to get some spatulas and put it on some cold granite and just like
Makes
mess
it.
around with it, which
Yeah.
you've probably done more than you've ever cared to remember.
I actually quite as far as jobs go, that you can do as a teenager, I actually quite liked the ice cream gig. Not gonna lie. So maybe just because I also got quite a lot of ice cream, so I have no complaints. We also had some, as Jeff would like to call, pseudo celebrities who showed up, including a previous contestant from The Bachelor. Hooray! Yeah, it's coming back again,
Ari.
again.
Ari Luyendik.
No, that is not the last name. Try
Yeah,
that
that's his name.
again. Is it?
Ari Luyendik. I'm saying it wrong. I know his. I remember. I've watched this season of The Bachelor. I remember everything. I'm serious. I remember this. Can I pause for a second and talk about this?
Yes.
About Ari? Okay, this has been covered in LDS Living. It's also been covered in Deseret News. We're making a big deal about the fact that a former contestant on a reality show, one of which I know plenty of Latter-day Saint women watch, even though at the same time it's hate watching when you watch The Bachelor. That's the kind of program it is. You watch it because it's ridiculous. At the same time, it does it fill you with joy and the spirit. I mean, no, it's wildly antithetical to a lot of what we believe in as Latter-day Saints. That's not to say you can't enjoy other things that do this. It's not like watching Grey's Anatomy also doesn't have content that is antithetical to our beliefs as members of the church. But I mean, The Bachelor is just drunk women and fighting and contrived situations and all kinds of stuff. It's not like it's prestige television by any stretch of the imagination. So there's that side of it. I think it's weird for us to be going out of our way to be excited that an also ran from The Bachelor went to the temple with his wife. Now, if you remember this season, by the way, he proposed to Becca in the end. And then in the follow-ups later on, he wound up dumping her because he was still in love with the other one that he dumped initially for the finale, the one he said no to. He actually thought he made a mistake and he married Lauren in the end instead. He dumped Becca and he married Lauren. And now they have kids and stuff. So I guess, bully for them. But
Wow.
I just don't know why there's other people who are like, worth noting a bit. Michaela Skinner, really cool Olympic story
Yeah, I
that we
appreciated
had
seeing
there.
her in the picture uh much more, not gonna lie, but that is also because I have zero connection to or affinity for The Bachelor
And
personally.
some songwriter named Evie St. Clair, who I don't
Yeah,
know.
wasn't familiar with, but you know what? Probably
Evie
worth a
St.
little search on Spotify.
Evie St. Clair. Evie St. Clair. She was on America's Got Talent. That is how
Okay.
I believe she is known. So this
Sweet.
is all well and good. The Bachelor one just kind of baffles me. I guess he must have come through and they're like, "Oh, guys, look who's here.
Look
You
who's
might as well get a
here.
good picture of him." And since
See,
we've
I
talked
don't
a lot
know if
about
it was even that. I think it was just he probably posted on Instagram and they just snagged that photo. I don't know
um,
necessarily know that hopefully there were not any like Deseret News reporters who were like,
that
"Oh
actually
my gosh, look who's here."
that actually might be. Let's see. Deseret News covered it. Deseret News gave it like an entire
Oh, they gave it
profile.
such a spiel and I loved that some of the comments were also, like us, kind of being like, why why is this a thing we're interested in? Um
People even said like this is an ironic mixture of lust for connection to the rich, famous, and popular.
does The Bachelor make you rich? I don't know that that's really nope. I'm not thinking so. It's
How
like a
how
mixture of
ex-
maybe you get a relationship along with public shaming. It
I
doesn't
love this
sound that
one.
nice.
How exciting! Did they visit any place else? Mesa has a real good taco stand not far from the temple. Did they go there as well? Like, what else did they do? I'm really
Can
curious.
we get a yeah, day by day, hour by hour itinerary, please?
Now,
Um,
Josie, real quick, I don't want to. I can be done with this in a second. Since we've talked a lot about properly representing the church, all that kind of stuff, we've mentioned it on this week. I'm curious if we have editorial license to correct quotes from individuals who say it the wrong way. Like, for example, his quote was, I've always been curious, and they put brackets about the temple. So it was such an amazing experience to walk through and get more understanding of the LDS faith. Very nice sentiment. My question is, they're already using brackets for whatever he said. He didn't say the word about. They filled that in to make the sentence make more sense. Why are we not bracketing out LDS or Mormon and changing it so it says like I'm to walk through and get more understanding of the bracket the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints or the faith of the church? Why aren't we doing that? If we're pushing everyone to get rid of stuff, is it okay to use the brackets and get the same quote across, or at the very least put some brackets and put SIC, like just say you misspelled this, you
nah,
said LDS and that's a misspelling. I, I think
because
this
we
opens up a can
don't
of
want to
worms, but
be the uptight Mormons. We don't want to be so passive
if
aggressive.
we're trying to push
This
this
is
out there, church-owned outlets have a responsibility
sure.
to not to publish incorrect terminology, even though LDS Living is owned by the church and hasn't changed its name, and that's a whole other thing. But they still have a responsibility
There's more
to change
damage to
it.
be done by us as a people being like, meh, you spelt my name wrong. Let's just let it go. You know
No,
what? He didn't call us the
no, this is
Catholic
the battle we have
Church.
to fight.
So, or, he got the religion pretty well
Said the
accurate.
the LDS faith. Last time I checked, it
Ugh,
was the restored gospel of the LDS faith. I think that's disrespectful. I think he is not a fair-minded member of the media. This Ari Ludenik,
I'm sure.
Ari Luda.
The name, his name, his itself. I mean, what is he going to quote you now and also put little brackets around the way that you have
I
mispronounced?
feel like this is what we should start. Yes, exactly, exactly. Anyway,
Yeah.
anything else on the Mesa Temple?
Just that President Oaks also published an op ed in the Arizona Republic. It was pretty basic, just inviting everyone to come and see the temple. So if you're in the area, go for it. If you can get a little slot or a ticket,
All
I
right,
think you
couple
need a
quick
ticket.
mentions, folks. A couple quick mentions before I'm going to dive into our last story.
Mm.
For one, LDS Living was nice enough to publish an article about 24 photos, and according to the URL though, it says 25 rare photos. So something has changed since they published this. So it used to be 25 rare photos, but now it's 24 photos, not necessarily rare, everyday photos, things you just stumble across, and just with no effort whatsoever. 24 photos of President Ballard that will make you love him even more. This is part of their ongoing photos of so and so that will make you love him or her even more, which I love because I it's fine. I like the one of him as a young missionary in England. I feel like the people he's standing with look like mobsters, and I think that's a great look for him.
The hats, yes. Oh,
Uh,
it's
um,
such a fluff piece, but they're really
well, that's all these
sticking
things
to
are. I
this
mean, it's fine.
column, aren't they?
He's golfing with some friends who, if I'm not mistaken, folks, if you look at the one, are you looking at it right now, Josie?
No, hold on, let
If
me
you look
pull it
at
up.
golfing with friends, I'm 85% sure the second from the right is Mitt Romney. I am very in looking at that photo. I mean, that's Mitt Romney, right?
Did we label this golfing with friends in high places?
It just says President Ballard golfing with friends. That,
Second one, oh wow, you're right.
yeah, not even a mention of the Mitt.
Maybe.
Yeah, I think that's the Mitt Romney. I think that's,
Also, a stellar selection of hats once again, and polka dot polos.
I don't know. He's doing great things. He's doing, anyways, nice photos. I love him even more. And that's what I'm happy. That's what they promised, and that's what I feel. Also worth noting, President Nelson has announced more temples than any other president of the church, which is something that's all you need to know. He has announced 83 temples. He's eclipsed President Hinckley. We talked about that before conference. If he only announced like 6, he would pass President Hinckley in the number of temples announced. He has done so. 83 temples, and he's done it in 3.5 years. So a lot's gone down for the past little while, ever since President Nelson took the reins. No surprises here. We've kind of become used to it. I don't know if we're ever going to slow down on that front. I'll be curious. I'm not in any rush or hurry for President Nelson to pass on, but I am curious whenever there's a change in administration, if this same very big zeal to get temples going will continue, or if it will be sort of a hallmark of the Nelson presidency and other things will get focus with other people, which, can obviously easily be the thing. Also, Elder Rasband wrote an op-ed in The Hill about religious freedom because he
It's like,
really
is
likes
that it? Is that all you're gonna say?
he real Elder Rasband really likes speaking about religious freedom. He talks about the importance of faith, how obviously no amount of government programs or big business or anything like that is going to replace the importance and the value of faith and faith communities and the families built around faith communities, which is great. And he even makes the economic case for it, that religion annually contributes nearly $1.2 trillion of socioeconomic value to the U.S. economy, for example. So
So my one thought on
faith is
that,
crucial.
if I can be a little contrarian just for a second, would be that while I agree with that idea in theory, that I also worry, or do you think that faith groups, just as much as governments as well, could be like discriminatory to groups that maybe need that support and help, but maybe if we're not in that community, you're not as aware of those needs. Like by the nature of a community kind of coming together and supporting each other, you need to know what those needs are. And like Utah is pretty good about this. Like we have high social mobility. Like that's a thing that does actually happen. But are we able to really spread that influence that we have as a church and as a faith community to other parts of the US? We don't seem to be doing that, maybe not quite as well or as effectively. So I guess my thought was that it would be nice if we could see more of a balance of like perhaps being okay with some government programs that are maybe could kind of fill those gaps that we are not seeing or filling as a church. But also that I think that there's just, I guess what I'm feeling, what I was thinking while reading it was that there's probably more needs than us as a church is able to meet. But is this is this
No, I'm
my
just
little tiny violin music?
it's just
Like woe
dramatic.
is us.
Yes.
Okay, I'll get off this soapbox, but you spoke forever about the name of the church.
Oh, now it's
So,
forever. It
yes.
was, I'm interested in what you're saying, Jeff, and now it's forever.
I just thought it was an interesting op-ed. That's all. Shall we
It
leave it
is.
at
It's
that?
pretty. We'll link
It
it
is.
there.
It's worth checking out.
Folks, we're going to leave you this week with my favorite article of the week, published by one Danielle B. Wagner of, once again, LDS Living, also known as Latter-day Saint Living. The title, What the Church Has Said About Halloween. Well, it appears the church has said very little. Daniel's research points us to the fact that the church hasn't said much. In the church's handbook, it states that decorations for ward parties or holiday celebrations should be approved by the stake president and cannot be used in the chapel or on the exterior of the building. These restrictions only broadly, not specifically, address Halloween and focus on how the holiday can be celebrated at ward, branch, or stake level, not for individual members. Okay. Have prophets and apostles said much?
No.
Not really. I mean, it's this is the thing here is this is what it says. So after saying what prophets and apostles have said about Halloween, you ask. No, it says while church leaders have not addressed Halloween in particular, they have addressed some satanic practices associated with this time of year. To be clear, Halloween is what was derived from a pagan holiday. Pagan and satanic aren't the same thing, for one. Let's be clear about that. And I don't know that Halloween is inherently satanic. I'm all ears if you want to talk about how Halloween can be a weird excuse to embrace things that are off-putting or macabre or gory or wrong or an excuse to slut it up with the way you want to appear. Anything you like, right? Like Halloween can be a lot of different things, and I'd be happy to have those discussions. It could also be satanic if you wanted it to be, but for some reason the article pivots very quickly into then quoting church leaders about satanic things like devil worship, sorcery, casting spells, witchcraft, voodooism, black magic, and all other forms of demonism, which should be avoided like the plague. And that was a quote. That was part of a quote from President James E. Faust. The little bit of it from a long time ago. Um, I thought that almost made me think of Harry Potter too. I know we're not against Harry Potter as a faith, but if you're going off against casting spells and sorcery, we're very close to the evangelicals who are anti-Potter, folks. We got to be careful with that. So anyways, then it says, where does that leave us when it comes to trick-or-treating, dressing up for parties, or ward trunk-or-treats? Well, the Family Proclamation counsels that successful marriages and families are established and maintained on principles of prayer, forgiveness, respect, love, compassion. Couldn't those activities also include holiday traditions you share with your family? And basically, it's like, is Halloween a good, wholesome time for your family? Then it's cool. I don't have any statements from church leaders specifically about Halloween, but let's look into Satanism just for good measure. And that is how someone told Danielle to write this article. And I think that person should be fired.
You know what? I think it was the
And that is it.
commenters, because she does mention how this time of year they inevitably will get some people commenting about how members of the church should not celebrate Halloween. And that to me was actually probably the most interesting takeaway from this. I thought, really? Like, is this genuinely something people are concerned about? Is this the hill we want to die on?
It's
Is
really important.
Halloween? I
This
don't know.
Halloween. This how
Look,
I
if
don't
you're
get it.
very,
Why you?
very concerned, you could take more of maybe a Day of the Dead approach, and you could do some family history work. And then that could, I mean, you could look back at your ancestry and the people who have passed on and appreciate them.
Now it's funny you mentioned Day of the Dead, but doesn't Day of the Dead have like inappropriate spiritual
Oh,
connotations for
look
how
what.
you celebrate Day of the Dead? Wouldn't that be embracing false doctrine if you celebrate Day of the Dead to its full? I've seen Coco, Josie. I know what
Oh,
happens.
so you know everything. Hmm.
Yes.
Well, look, I was trying to give people an alternative maybe go into some family history work, and they could pivot if that's really what they want to do. Um, I personally think there's nothing wrong with Halloween. I don't know
Hot
that.
take from Josie,
Yeah,
folks.
I don't really know that there are many people who do, but you know what? They make themselves known in the comments, and that's obviously where we should be getting our hard, solid data,
Yes.
is from the people who comment.
Well, you know what? This has been a fascinating week. We've gone the whole episode without talking about COVID or anything related to it. So, props to
We
everyone.
had one teeny tiny little mention about the Mexico City um, MTC opening up. But you know what? That was a positive thing. And I feel pretty
Yeah, yeah,
good
yeah.
about having lasted about an hour without complaining about COVID, which
No COVID, no vaccine talk either. We did very well
I'm
on this
so
episode.
proud of
So,
us. Instead,
thank
we
you
had a
very
lot
much.
more mentions of The Bachelor. So use that to your CEO advantage.
Stupid Ari.
Or SEO, not CEO.
That's right. I'm gonna ride this train. Come on, ride the train and ride it. So, everybody, this show is over. Josie, thank you for being here. It's nice to see you again.
Thank you for
I
having
hope we will
me.
see you at some point soon. But obviously, until then, we all wish you very, very well with safe birthing and rearing and all those fun things, which are gonna happen, which is gonna be great. We're really excited for you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. My feet are currently the size of swollen flippers from sitting at this desk. So I apparently have to go try and stick them up and over my head and get that to drain. So that's my fun day for the rest, for
No,
everyone to
this is where
know.
this is where I show how I'm really good at empathy. I'm really sorry that's affecting you, Josie.
Oh, I
That's a bummer. That
appreciate that,
sucks.
Jeff. You're
That
such
sucks.
a good support.
That
This is
sucks.
what
It's
I
gonna
need
be
in my
okay though. You
life.
you take care of you. You're gonna be all right. Gonna be all right. Even though it's my fault your feet are that way, apparently, by making you sit here for an hour. So,
Cheers, Jeff. At least you
cheer-
know when to accept the blame.
Folks, please support us on Patreon. That's patreon.com/thisweekinmormons. I love all you folks who hop on there. It's super nice of you. This show is not free to produce, so thank you for helping make it possible. And obviously, we keep our ads to a minimum, as you know. So seriously, that makes a huge difference. If you want to go to patreon.com/thisweekinmormons and pledge $3 or so a month, that would be super, super awesome. And you will have my absolute huge thanks to each and every one of you for doing that. I will send you a personalized note telling you just how much you mean to me on a personal level. Also, of course, go to thisweekinmormons.com where you can see the notes from this episode, the links to the articles we've discussed, and you can also find links to our social media platforms where we encourage you to like, follow, subscribe, all that fun stuff. And if you have not written a review for this show in a while, wherever you get podcasts, we hope you'll do so. And if you haven't subscribed to this podcast, smash that subscribe button wherever you are. Please do that. Then you'll always get this in your inbox near the beginning of every single week. So thank you for the housekeeping, and thank you for spending time with us, each and every one. For Josie, I'm Jeff. This has been This Week in This Week in This Show? This Week in
That
Mormon?
was
I don't
it.
know what it
That
was.
was it.
Anyway, it's whatever it is on a given week. I think so. I'm just going to stop saying what the show is. I'll just start the show every week and be like, hi, everybody. So let's get into it. So with that spirit, thank you for taking the time to tune into this program, and we'll talk to you later.